Yay.
Yay. Awesome. So, yay. We are live and we are live on Facebook only. My Instagram is having technical issues. So, all good. Unfortunately, it's having technical issues on the day that I am welcoming my first guest speaker here on my Wednesday Wisdom and Wellness. And my name is Anuschka Alborzian. I am an empowerment health coach and energy healer. Today, I'd like to welcome Yennie, and she's going to introduce herself as well, and our topic of thriving through uncertainty, which is so important right now.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Yennie Rautenberg, and I'm a leadership coach. And I am thrilled to be here to share some of the tools that I have developed to deal through this in certain times.
Super exciting. I love it. I read your pamphlet that you sent me, and I thought it was brilliant with how you created this framework. So I definitely wanted you to share more about it for everyone that's out there and more of what you're up to. And just to begin, we met, oh my gosh, I think a couple years ago now, I would say, right?
Yep.
At an ICF workshop. ICF is the International Coaching Federation, and we were doing a workshop there, and for some reason I feel like we either knew each other through some other way. There was some familiarity, we just got connected, right?
Yeah, well, we were at Qualcomm together.
Well, that's what it was. I was like, there was some connection there. I'm like, that's right, we were both at Qualcomm.
Yep.
And we're both coaches, so
yeah, and we both got laid off too. So
that's true, we did. And hey, in hindsight, it was a blessing in disguise, right?
I agree. Yeah, and one of the things that when I left the corporate world, one of the things that I wanted to is focus more on having a direct impact on people and to help particularly diverse leaders to shine, to thrive, and also to find their own voice, which is something that we see missing, particularly in the corporate world, right? So I have been doing a lot of that, working with professionals to help them advance in their careers. And the idea of this framework of resilience, it's resilient 5 A's, because there are 5 different aspects that I put together, was to, as leaders, we all need to be resilient, right? And there's certain skills and things that we develop through life, but a lot of those skills are more to confront stress or threats. So it's more a reaction as opposed to a thought through process to respond to the change or the whatever is happening, but also to do it in a way that it's healthy. What we have seen is that most people are just responding to COVID, to working from home, and people are getting burnout because they are just reacting using their own devices. And what this framework provides is some tools to be a little bit more mindful and to also make sure that you're taking care of yourself.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah. And it sounds like, so you create, because it's about uncertain times too, right? So what had you create it? Can you explain a little bit more around that?
So, well, as a leadership coach, as I said, resilience is something really important, right? So one morning in mid-March, I am laying in my bed and I have a breakdown. And I am like, oh my God, what's going to happen? My family lives in Mexico. The borders were closing. So I really started to have like a really bad breakdown. And in a moment, I was like, okay, hold on. You have the tools, right? Like, you're a coach, you know how to deal with. So I started to pull different things that I have been using on myself and with my clients for quite some time. So the idea of framing it in a way that it's easier to remember and to understand came when I started to talk to people and to see that it's not like a recipe or a process that you follow, right? Like, each person is different and we deal with change and uncertainty in different ways. So the framework allows you to pick one tool, whatever is better for you, and navigate using that specific tool.
I love it. Yeah. And one thing I love that you said in the pamphlet was that it's not linear. And
Exactly.
I'm all about that. I really truly believe that life is not linear. We're always going in like a spiral. Emotions, when we discover our emotions, even it could be it's like a spiral more than anything else, right?
Yep.
Come back to it at a deeper level. So I really, really love that you said that. That was awesome.
And you know what also allows you, sorry to interrupt you, is that when you don't relate to life in a linear way, you can also find new ways to deal with things that you had never thought about, right? Following a recipe it's hard because each circumstance is different. So
yeah, we're all unique individuals living a unique experience.
Exactly. So the framework is what allows for that.
That's awesome. I love it. So yeah, tell us, what are the 5 A's?
Yeah, so there are 5. The framework, what it says is that there is 5 A's that we can tap into when we are dealing with uncertainty or with change. And the first one is again, it's not linear. So one of them is acceptance, right? And one of the things that if we really observe how we react to things, rarely we accept things, right?
Actually, do you mind listing them all, and then we'll just
sure.
answer the question.
Yeah,
with you?
Absolutely. So it's acceptance, awareness, right? Being aware of what's going on with you. Assessment, like assessing specific things of the specific situation. Anchors, which is a series of things that I invite people to consider their anchors so they stay grounded on who they are. And the 5th is action.
Yes. Awesome. Love it.
So acceptance.
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah. So I just wanted to have like at least the 5 of them listed. I think it's huge to really just look at this. I thought it was brilliant. Where acceptance, absolutely, right? Like acceptance is so important. And yeah, go ahead and share more. How do we react to the unexpected as people, as human nature?
Yeah. Well, one of the things about acceptance is it's kind of funny because it is like things are the way they are and we resist them. We take things very personal. We ask questions like, oh, why this? Why me? Why now? And really we spend a lot of energy in all this resistance about what's happening. So when you say like, okay, this is what's happening. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Now what, right? It would be better if it wasn't there, yes. Do you agree or disagree with how it's managed? You might have your opinions, but the fact is that we are dealing with this. So just by the fact of accepting things the way they are and the way they are not, something opens up and you don't spend that much energy resisting.
Yes.
Right?
Totally.
And that goes to, you dealt with like really serious health issues, and that was something that you had to accept to be able to take a different action. Right?
Absolutely.
So, and it's not easy, but it's simple. It's just very simple to do.
Surrender, it sounds like, is a big part of that, right? It's like acceptance and just surrendering to what's so.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you agree or that you condone, or it's nothing about that. It's just what it is. And so that's, and that also takes some willingness, right? Like, are you willing to accept things the way they are, or are you just want to stay like, fixated in your point of view?
Yeah. And
you have a choice. Right. You have a choice. So what do you choose? So that's the first action that you would need to take. The next A is awareness. And awareness in 3 different senses. One is be aware of what are your expectations about things. Because a lot of times we have big expectations about things, they're unrealistic. And the fact that we didn't actually ground those expectations makes the breakdown happen, right? So expecting, for example, everybody to wear a mask is just an unrealistic expectation, because if you agree or not, people are not going to wear masks or are going to wear masks. That's what happened, right? So what are your expectations? And make sure that when you are spending energy and time, that you are doing those things in a productive way and not just stay stuck in a circle that goes nowhere. The other thing is being aware of your emotions. And we tend to just generalize, like I'm afraid, I'm stressed, or I'm overwhelmed. But going one level deeper to see exactly what's there. Is it fear? Is it grief? Or whatever it's there, right? And be able to talk about those things. And the other is, what's your mindset? What's your mindset about this thing? Do you want to be a victim, or do you want to look for opportunities? There's always the bad and the good, the positive and the negative, right? So you really have a choice where to look. So those are the three things to be aware of.
What I love about awareness too is when we are aware, it gives us the choice.
Exactly.
And I really believe that 80% of the battle is awareness. To come out of that autopilot. So I love that you've included awareness, because awareness is what gives us choice and choosing things differently.
Yeah, and we also need to understand that it's nothing bad to look at the negative side of things, right? Like, we all do that. We are human beings. We're designed to identify threats and survive them. So we need to look at the bad things so we can prepare for that. But the important thing to know is that there is as much bad as good. So you have a choice on what you focus on.
And without having the bad, right? Because that in itself is an opinion, but without having that, we would never be able to appreciate the good that happens in our life.
Exactly.
That contrast works so well together.
Yeah. And there's the law of polarity that probably you're aware of, which is exactly that, right? When there's light, there's darkness, where is good, where is bad. So it's just the part of the same continuum, is just the two ends. So awareness is super, super important. The other one that it's a trick too is assessment. And what I mean by this is, the first thing to do is assess what can you control, what can you manage, and what you cannot manage or control. And if we look, we love to try to control everything, because that's what we are as human beings, right? And there are things that
cannot control.
Right, but there are things that we cannot control, and we still try to control and spend tons of energy and our well-being controlling something that you cannot control. So when you assess, like, okay, from this massive thing that is happening right now, what are the things that I can control? And focus and take actions on those things. And when we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I love the work that you do because of this too, is your health and your well-being is something that you can control 100%.
Absolutely.
Right? There might be diseases or things that happen in your body, but you can manage that.
Yeah.
It's just
and heal from it when you take all the actions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, sorry.
I didn't know, before you jump off of assessment, I would love to ask you something actually in regards to that one.
Yeah.
And because you said something great in the pamphlet, and you said something like knowing the difference and being able to assess the difference between facts and the stories we create. So I'd love for you to share around that, because a lot of times people collapse the two, right? For them, it's like the story is the fact. That's reality.
We're experts doing that. And the important thing to understand is that's what our mind does. That's what our brain does. It's designed to that, and it's good, because that prevents a lot of things, like bad things to happen to us, right? It's about survival. But the important thing to know first is that every event, every interaction that you have with people, everything that happens in your life, the way that you experience life, you are all the time interpreting. You're making stories, right? So you're having a conversation and the person looks away, immediately you start making up stories. Oh, they're not interested. They don't like me. They're rude. The only thing that the person did was turning around and came back to talk to you. But in the meantime, you already made all these assessments and characterizations of the person because they turn around.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that you make up this kind of stories is very helpful to know, and then to go back and assess if you are relating and what's causing the stress and the uncertainty is a fact, something real that is happening, or is all this story or interpretation that you made up about what's happening. And one of the things that news, unfortunately, they don't just deliver facts.
Nope.
Right?
Why I don't watch the news.
Exactly. We don't want to watch news because it's all interpretation, opinions, etc. So what makes the fact bigger, juicy, dramatic is interpretation.
Other-sided, yeah. It's very biased, and it very much is, there's no facts there. Well, there may be facts, but it's coming through another, like it's like through another funnel, right? So, and then there's going to be opinions and bias attached to that.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, so you just, I'm not saying don't watch ever news. I mean, but have that understanding.
Opinion.
I don't watch a lot of news either, but that's the other thing that we do, and that goes to the part of your well-being. If I know that watching news is going to get me upset, I am going to be yelling at whoever is talking. I don't watch the debates, the presidential debates, because I know that it's going to be upsetting. But people still do it. So if you want to know what are the facts, just read the following day a newspaper and see what happens. But getting stuck to the TV and fighting and yelling to the TV is just not healthy, right? So if you know that you cannot control your whatever reaction you have to the news, don't watch the news.
Yeah. And so going back to that awareness too, right? Because that is key in having the awareness of your insides, like your body and what it's doing to you when you're watching anything, not just news, anything, period.
Exactly.
Or not even just watch, anything you do, period, having awareness of your body, because that's what I'm all about, right? And being aware of, how is this making me feel right now?
Exactly. And sometimes you need, and sometimes you need to go backwards, right? Like a lot of times I have this sensation in my body. Maybe I have like my gut is hurting, or like something is happening with my body. And then I need to go backwards to see like, okay, when did it start? What happened before, right? So if you cannot sleep at night, for example, you just go back to your day and say, what were the events that happened and what made me unsettled? Right. And it's very easy to also modulate your emotions when you create that kind of awareness.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yes, next one, anchors. So I know you mentioned anchoring is about grounding and whatnot. So can you explain more about that, and there's like 5 different anchors that you defined. So can you explain more about that as well, please?
Yeah. And a lot of the work about anchors, I really recommend people to do before they are in crisis. But if you're already in crisis, you can still tap into those things. And again, if you look at what an anchor does, right, to a ship, like it puts it in place, but still there is some movement that happens. It just doesn't allow the ship just to go away. So it stays in the same place, but still it moves a little bit. So it's not that you need to be like stuck in a place. You can still have some flexibility to move around. But one of the anchors that it's super, super important is your relationships, your network of people. And relationships are hard, right? Because there are all these interpretations that are between people, and we normally like to win when we're talking to others, right? It's about debating versus like having a conversation. So,
and why I do healthy relationship coaching, because that's a huge part of health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of the things that happen in relationships is that trying to control the other person, right? Or to change the other person. So going back to acceptance, if you accept people exactly the way they are.
And the way they are not.
then you can have more freedom to interact with them.
Right.
So relationships, very important. Make sure that you're nurturing them. If you are in relationships that don't work for you, just do something about it. Don't get stuck there, right? And make sure that you're nurturing relationships. And it's not just about your family or your best friends. It's also from a business perspective or from a whatever work you do perspective, important to have positive, nurturing relationships around you. And you can see, for example, restaurants, right? Like I'm going to give another example. I live in downtown San Diego, and there is a gym, and across the street there was a school. So both things are closed because of COVID. But at the beginning, what they did was that the gym pull out all their equipment into the parking lot of the school so they could continue giving their service. Now, I don't know how the negotiation happened or how that happened, but obviously there was a relationship between those two businesses, or well, the school and the business, that they could support each other, right? So just look at how you can get the support that you need from your relationship. So super important. The other thing is about your values. What are your core values? What is important to you? And I promise you that what was important to you in January, in March, is not the same as it's important for you now, right?
Absolutely.
So it's important to continue reevaluating, and I call it recalibrating your values, to make sure that you are in a place that you're really being true to what's important to you.
Yeah, and we're always evolving, we're always growing, we're dynamic, so we're going to be growing those values as well, right? It makes total sense.
Yeah, and you know what I have seen with some of my clients is that they have their value system, or not my clients, everyone. Our value system is created when we are little, right? As we are growing up. And it's rarely that we stop and look at those values and see if those values are still valid. Sometimes it's important to recalibrate them. So that
goes back to awareness again, because for the most part, we're on autopilot. I mean, it's known that we're on, from subconscious living, autopilot 95% of the time, unless we choose to become more aware and conscious, right? So that's why this coaching is absolutely necessary for
And most people don't even know what are their values, like, you know, and they go to ethics, right? So ethics is something different. But in ethics, it's like what's good and bad, or what works or doesn't work for you. And that most likely is more stable, let's say. But when you are, but the values are more malleable, and it's really as we evolve in life. The one that a lot of my clients love, the other anchor, is your strengths. Yes. What are your strengths? Because the same thing. Most of the time we're not aware of what are our strengths.
Yeah, we're more aware of our, I feel like as human nature, we're more aware of our faults and criticize ourselves. And
and that is totally true. We have a hard time pointing to our strengths, but we have a long list of all of the things that are wrong with us, right? So the way that I relate to your strengths is like, imagine that it's a coin, and it's the same coin, and on one side you have your accomplishments, and the other side you have your failures or your shortcomings. Because those things made you strong too, and made you who you are, right?
There's no such thing as failure.
Yep.
Then we wouldn't be walking.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine that if we were babies and we were stopped trying at the third fall, right? So if you relate to your failures as something wrong, there's really nothing you can do about it. And it goes directly to your self-esteem. But if you look at your shortcomings or failures as opportunities for growth, which goes back to awareness, which goes back to, you know, you have an opportunity to do something about it and make it more actionable.
Yeah, and one thing I love to always say in that is like, what's the gift in this when things are not going your way or things are failing, right? Like, what is the gift in this? What is the opportunity and lesson to be learned from this? And always that way.
The other thing too that I have used during this time is like if COVID is happening for something instead of to me or to you, like what is the opportunity? How can I contribute? And that's how this framework happened, because I said like this is an opportunity to really contribute to people and make a difference with them. And that's how I leveraged COVID in a way that I could contribute to others. So
yeah, I love it. It's awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
And similarly, I always look at this and I share with my clients and people, I'm like, I call this phase of life, COVID, as we're all going through labor. There's something there at the end. We don't know what that is, but
Yeah.
as a baby, there's a miracle waiting for us. It's just right now we're in labor.
And sometimes it's painful and it's uncomfortable and we really don't know, right? So, but there's always opportunity everywhere. And the other anchor is your health and well-being. And I don't have to say much about it because you're an expert with that. And you know that you cover that all the time. But
very important. Absolutely.
We need to take care of ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves. And then the fifth A is action. And we have been talking about it, right? Like if we don't take actions at all these different stages, nothing happens. So those are the 5 A's. And people can go to my website and they can download the booklet that explains all of this. So please have, take a look at that.
Yeah. And why don't you also put your website link in the comments, because this is on Facebook and everything too.
Yeah.
And that way people can click on it. But yeah, it's action to me. I mean, that's everything. And it's not about forced action either. I always talk about it as inspired action. What comes from your heart, not something that you feel obligation to do, because it just doesn't feel good, right? So it's like take on inspired action that's going to get you to where you want to be and what you desire in life. Yeah,
that's true. Or not frantic, right? Action, because that's what happened. Like, oh, let's do.
Yeah.
And then you don't have time to. A lot of the things that we do when we're in the middle of this of stress are not that productive.
No, because it's fear-based. It's coming from a place of like desperation. Every time I've taken action from there, I've always said, why did I do that? Yeah. Whereas when I'm coming from the heart space and I come from that place of like, oh my gosh, I feel inspired to do this. I'm so fulfilled afterwards, right? And that goes for everyone. It's just a matter of realizing awareness, having the awareness of, does this feel like an obligation, or is this something coming from fear, or am I actually feeling inspired and coming from a love space, right? I love fear. Can't have both at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what difference has this made in your life and for your clients, and what are you up to with all this?
Yeah, well, one of the things is that I truly had a moment of aha moment that morning when I was struggling with how to deal with what was happening, and I was able to start to think about all these things in the way that I can use this to make a difference with people. And that's something that I love, and that's why I'm a coach. So how can I offer this for people to deal with uncertainty too? And this is also applicable for businesses, right? So you just need to do some adjustments, but all of this is applicable for business too. So I hope that all of this is helpful for people. And obviously, well, I'm a coach, so I'm open for business, but also I'm going to do a workshop specific on this starting in November, which we go deeper into each of the different A's, and people have loved it. So and I'm offering also to organizations like companies, to help their employees to deal with burnout.
Yeah. Well, especially with everybody these days, like kids at home. I mean, things are just completely shifted. So it's so interesting you say that, because this morning I posted about exactly that. If you don't take time for self-care, well, I did it for more balance, right? But taking time for self-care and self-love really, then you are going to get burnt out. You are going to crash, and your body's going to be the one that actually is going to suffer from it. Right. So that in itself is huge, because this right here is going to make a difference around that as well.
Yeah. The other thing about your body, and it goes back to awareness, your body tells you.
Yep. Always talking to us. Yes.
Yeah. I have a friend who has been working like crazy since the pandemic started. A few weeks ago, her back just cracked and she cannot be sitting in front of the computer, right?
Me, I just sprained my ankle a few weeks ago because I didn't listen to my body. You'd think I learned my lesson after what the health journey I went through with the brain tumor and everything, but that's the thing about autopilot and always choosing and being aware. And it's as soon as we don't, then the body's going to be like, hey, guess what? You're not listening, so I'm going to force you to rest.
Yeah,
which
I'll tell you.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, no, I love all of this. Thank you so much for being on here. This was great, and I loved hearing about your 5 A's. I want to see if anybody has questions here on Facebook. I know there's some people here. Let's see. Oh, hi, Ellie. I don't know if you're still watching. All right. Looks like we don't have any questions, but is there anything else that you wanted to share?
No, I just want to thank you for the opportunity for this conversation. And, just people, you aware, listen to your body. And I look forward to continue talking to you.
Yeah, I loved it. And this is the perfect place for us to actually share too. There are so many different types of coaches out there, right? We met through ICF. You did accomplishment coaching, did you not?
No.
Yeah, so see, we didn't even go to the same coach training program, yet we met at the International Coaching Federation workshop, right? So we met at ICF's workshop, and we both are coaches. Yennie, you're a leadership coach for the most part, right?
Yep.
Look, I do health and empowerment coaching with help people that have health struggles, and really more so around well-being, and people that want to prevent health struggles or relationships. So as you can see, and this is just 2 coaches, there are so many different coaches out there. And I really believe that every person in this world could benefit from a coach.
Absolutely. And I'm going to put now my hat of the ICF, because I'm a board member.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, because I'm like, I don't know much about ICF anymore.
I'm a board member of ICF, and one of the things that the Coaching Federation stands for is standardize the industry of coaching, because it's not regulated or anything, and just to make sure that when people hire coaches, they really hire coaches that follow certain guidelines and that are certified in some way. Just to make sure that the profession of coaching continues being and evolving into a profession that it's reputable and that actually is making a difference, and not just that anyone can be a coach. I mean, anyone can be a great advisor and a consultant, but coaching requires certain skills that you and I have developed through our training. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. There's my commercial.
That's why I'm very particular, and I say I'm an empowerment health coach. I don't say life coach because I'm like, there's so many, and people don't even know what that means. But I'm like, no, this is my specific what I do coaching on, what I do energy healing on. This is what my niche is, and it's my passion. And so yeah, so that's great. I'm glad that you shared that as well, because we are actually amazing coaches out there, and
they are, and there's so much impact being made, right, by coaches, and also for managers or leaders that want to make a difference, in their leadership style, and then what they do in mentoring people and in helping people move and advance in their careers. There's a lot of room for improvement. So definitely working with a coach is a great idea.
Yeah, so hey, that's why Olympics have like Olympic. What are they like? The Olympic people, Olympists,
athletes,
like, all athletes, really. But athletes, Olympists, like all of them, they have not just one; they have multiple coaches to be able to actually see their blind spots.
Exactly.
And that's blind spots physically, but we're talking, we have so many blind spots subconsciously that we're not aware.
Oh yeah.
So
Yep.
I still do till this day. Things come up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not know that. So
yeah, there's always room for improvement and work. Like, I mean, I also have my own coach because we cannot see parts of ourselves. It's just impossible. So having a coach is always a good mirror.
It's a healing journey. So that's what I say. We're always like taking a layer off and healing.
Exactly.
That's life. So thanks again. I really acknowledge you for having created such an amazing framework during an uncertain time. I'm a huge believer of living life to the fullest in the face of any circumstance. And this is such a perfect collaboration of that. So
thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.